Welcome back, Timeline. I'm your host, Tanya, and this is the most interesting people on my timeline, a series and archive where I explore the digital space and how it affects the lives and work of my most interesting online friends. If you're new here, welcome to the timeline. If you enjoy hearing about people's career paths and creative processes or just stuff about the digital world, you've come to the right place. If you're not new here, welcome back. Look at us. We're halfway through the Sonic Slay season where we are exploring how people are successfully slaying it in the music business and online. As always, you can listen to all episodes anywhere you get your podcasts. You can also watch a visual version on YouTube or on Spotify. And if you want more bonus content or you want more information about each guest, you can go to taniadoes.com/interesting people. And this season, we also have a Spotify playlist that is inspired by our guests. It includes songs that they've worked on, songs that they've put out, or songs that they have recommended to me. So go check that out. All of that will be in the description box of whatever platform you're listening on. Today's episode features South Florida producer, performer, musical powerhouse, Pinto Picasso. You can find more info and bonus content at taniadoes.com/Pinto Picasso. Without further ado, welcome to episode 12. Let me introduce you to Pinto.
What's going on, everybody? My name is Pinto Picasso. I am an independent bachata artist. I work with a lot of great talents, not just within the bachata genre, but also in all genres of music. I've done everything from acapella music to reggaeton and now bachata and everything that you can think of vocally in between. I've had the opportunity to work right beside one of the biggest Latin artists in the history, which is Daddy Yankee. I got to work for him for a little over 11 years, so there was a lot to be learned from there. And a lot of things from there I apply to this day in how I conduct myself in my business and all of that. I've had opportunities to share the stage with many great artists, Smokey Robinson, Ben Folds, Sean Stockman from Boys to Men, J Balvin, Nicky Jam, Tego Calderon. It's been a crazy amount of blessings, and I'm grateful for every last one of them, and very humbled and grateful that you have me here on your show. I feel like it's always important to reach out and to a new audience. People who maybe wouldn't like normally look for your music, but I thank you for doing this, because this can probably introduce my music to many other people that never would have heard me otherwise. So thank you.
Yeah, and I personally really like your music. We'll talk about it later when I kind of give you your props a little bit, but hearing you talk about everyone you've collabed with and like your practice, I actually am so curious about how that started. How did you get into music? How did you learn to produce and collaborate? What was that start like?
Well, I've been involved in music since a very young age. I would dare say easily like around 5 years old. My dad was a musician, and he played a lot of bolero music, which is actually one of the roots of bachata. Bachata is like a hybrid of bolero and merengue, and that combination gave birth to bachata. So at a very young age, I was always around all of that. He was constantly playing his guitar, vocalizing, harmonizing, with his buddies that were also in the group. So it was always kind of like, a very natural way to express yourself in the house. And then naturally, he mentored me, like he taught me, how to harmonize, how to stay on the note. And ever since then, he always got me very involved into many different musical activities. Like I was part of a quartet in church. I also joined the church choir at a very young age, and my dad was actually directing it. And funny enough, later on in life, when I get to college, they have an official choir for the university, but there were a lot of new students coming in from the states that were used to more of a gospel type of culture and music. And so they created a gospel choir, and they put myself and other students that were there also for music in charge. And it was a great experience to be able to like join all these different cultures, you know, from different countries that all have a love for this specific kind of music. And I think just seeing that uh, that reaction that people have naturally to music, I think really motivates me and inspires me to continue to make it, because more than a way to make money, it's a way that you can create like a legacy, so people can hear your music 20, 30 years from now and be like, man, he was dope, you know. So in a way, you know, you can really live forever through your music.
I love that it stems from like this family aspect too, because I feel like that's how I got into music too. It's just like it was always around, and my grandma sang, and then that's when you learn like that kind of like you said, that emotional part of music. But then of course, like kind of you mentioned, there's like that money, that business aspect, these certain tools you learn for the industry. Did you always think that you wanted to do this professionally, or how did you get into, I guess, the industry part of it?
Well, I was always, as I said, I was always trying to be involved in you know, any kind of musical activities, and one of those was an acapella group called Alpha Voices, right? And the director of that group, his name is Edgar Rios. He was actually also my vocal coach for the time that I joined the group, and he had a very peculiar way, particular way to teach, you know, the different parts in the harmony. So he was hired very often as a vocal coach for other projects, right? So Luney Tunes, which is also like a well-known reggaeton producer, right? He had projects with these new upcoming groups. There was one group in specific called R11, and they put him in charge of the vocal coaching of that whole project. But you know, sometimes the hours that you work at in a studio can be very, you know, uh extense, you know, like you can be there for a really long time. And as a family man that he was, he couldn't really stay for the whole time that they had to work, you know, because they would get to the studio at like 11 p.m. and work till 5 in the morning. And he's been there since like 7 p.m. So they didn't make no sense for him. So he called me instead. He said, "Hey, I have this gig that I really I don't have the energy for, but I think it could be good for you and a good way for you to connect, you know, with these people, because they're in need of you know, some they're in need of people that can do what we do." Because at that time, you know, I wasn't giving any services, so you couldn't really say they're in need of your service. It's like, you know, they need people that can do what we do vocally, and I think you can, you know, capitalize off of this opportunity. And so I did, and I started working at Looney Tunes Studios as a vocal coach, and then slowly worked my way into engineering and working the Pro Tools, and actually the capturing of vocals and mixing of them, you know, understanding the frequencies, you know, what frequencies to cut in order for the vocals to cut through the mix and not get lost. So it was a whole process, but that's how I started. And then from that, it stemmed into working with more established reggaeton artists like Arcángel, Zion y Lennox, Alexis y Fido, La Cista, que era una artista muy dura en Puerto Rico. Otro dúo de reggaetón se llamaban los Jetsons, que uno de ellos era el hermano de Alexis y Fido. O sea, había una cepa de música urbana en Puerto Rico que me favoreció en ese momento, y por ahí pues seguir colándome en este estudio, en aquel estudio, cambiar el español. Was I supposed to stick to English? I'm sorry.
No, it's good. It can go back and forth. This is a multilingual podcast, so like anything that feels comfortable in the moment too.
Whoop, whoop. All right.
I love hearing you talk about like you know, the connections, the comunidad kind of that is in that, you know, you work with one person and that leads to, you know, working with others in the same space. And I actually love the Looney Tunes, like their coming up story, because I went to Harvard and they started off as like dining hall workers there. And then they
Oh,
became Looney Tunes. So it was always one of those things where only the Latino kids like knew that backstory, who went there and were like, this is where Looney Tunes worked. Like to
yeah.
see that come up story, like it's crazy. And again, like community is like really cool. And you know, maybe so you kind of learned on the job, you were saying, like you went into the studio, you learned all these frequencies, and you were like producing, you were vocal coaching. um and then when were you like, and you performed in like these groups, but then you also went on the sing off, and that was like a performance like with the acapella group. Can you talk about, like, was that at the same time as you were working with Looney Tunes and you started that, or you know, how was that process of being on the show?
Yeah, no, that actually was much later. I worked with Looney for about 3 or 4 years before I got the opportunity to cross paths with Daddy Yankee's team. Right, they were working on Llamado de Emergencia. I remember, and Noriega, which is one of the producers of that song, said, "Hey, we need to do a vocal arrangement to this for Daddy Yankee, and we need to get this done like now." So I remember jumping in the booth. I did the vocals, blah, 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 and then they sent the session over to the studio, and the studio was just like a couple of blocks away. You know, it wasn't even really that far. But you know, we sent the session, we transferred, you know, and then they got back to us, and they're like, "Who did these vocals?" And that was like, and they're like, "No, we have this kid here that he does. You know, he's a vocal coach, and he also does background vocals for some of the projects that we do." He said, "Okay, give him the session and send them over to the studio." And I went to hand over the session, and I walk into the studio. I see Musicolo and Menace, which are his producers at that time, and I hadn't seen him, so I just walk in. I was like, "Hey, what's up, guys?" And Pinto, you know, I come from Looney Studio. I have this session right here, and behind the door was Yankee. He was sitting. He said, "Papi, buen trabajo con las voces." And you know, it kind of shook me for a minute because it's like, "Who's that?" And then I turn around, and it's Daddy Yankee. It's like, "Whoa, okay, like that's pretty cool." And they appreciated, you know, the quality of my work so much that they say, "Hey, whenever if you ever need work, you know, there's always work happening here." So our doors are always open. While I was working with Yankee around 2009 is when we got the opportunity, and they said, "Hey, they're casting for a show in LA." And I actually spoke to Yankee and told him about the opportunity and how me and the guys wanted to go and represent Puerto Rico. And he actually bought our plane tickets to so we can all fly to LA and audition. And you know, fair enough. You know, we went and auditioned. We got into the show, and that took us to LA, and we were there for like about a month, living I think around Burbank, I think it was. So yeah, and it was every day we had to go to the studio, or every day we had rehearsals for choreography or arrangements, because every week they filmed the show, and then the finale was going to be like live. So that whole experience of being in LA for like a whole month and seeing how like an NBC level type of production really works, you know, everything that goes on backstage, the release forms you have to fill, the the unions that you have to sign up for in order to get paid for being on TV. It's like, you know, like it was a lot to learn, and at the same time we still had to like perform and get it done. But you know, I guess we were fan favorites, and the crowd was really on our side, you know, and it went very well for us.
Yeah, I watched a few of the performances, especially the one down with Jay Sean. Like that was the finale. That was, and I was like, it really got me hyped up. I don't usually watch a lot of acapella stuff, but I was like, wait, this is really hype. So I really enjoyed that. I didn't know that Yankee had bought y'all's plane tickets, and that's like you're getting that seal of approval from someone that's really big and who is your mentor. Like And that's crazy. And this was like the first season of the Sing Off too, right?
Hmm. Yeah, this was season one, and then they brought us back for season two for the season two finale to perform.
I think it like y'all were like the first, or like you were representing Puerto Rico on the show, and for like y'all to win like the first one, be fan favorites, like that's such a big deal. Like TV at the time was like it, like that's how you got big, was on TV. That's like really really cool, and maybe that'll lead into like my next question of like what has this is very memorable, but in looking at your entire career, what has been one performance moment that you're like, you know that this is memorable, this is like I made it, when was that moment for you?
I really felt it the most. I'm blessed to say that I've had many memorable moments with the crowds, but not after. But I think that the one, like you said, the finale of the sing off was a moment that I'll never forget because it was honestly it was very unexpected for us. We honestly thought that maybe they're just keeping us on the show because to win over the demographic, that type of thinking. But then when they finally called us, it was like a genuine surprise. And we didn't know that Jay Sean was backstage either. So when he came out to sing the song with us, that was like on top of the surprise, another surprise. I was like, man. So I think that was one of the most joyous moments that I've had as far as my career.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
gonna ask like if y'all knew he was coming out, because I feel like I get starstruck. I would have been like, I don't know, it would have put me off, but y'all kept performing and it was good. Like, what was that moment like?
Yeah, no, it was definitely whoa, but then it's like, hey, the cameras are on. Hold on, we gotta we gotta finish, but we started. But all that experience really plays into the opportunities that I have nowadays because now when I go on tour, I have a better understanding of the crowd and how to work them and how to keep them engaged in the show. Just recently, I had an amazing show in Argentina, which actually blew my mind. That was right after, I think, after the sing off. I think that was a very, very special moment for me as a solo artist because, with the group is one thing, it's a collective, effort. And as a solo artist, it is still a collective effort, with the team that's always behind you, helping you get everything done. But as a solo artist, it's like, man, like they're really like loving the music that I imagine. So, and that moment was crazy. There was like 1,500 people, 1,300 people in a dance ballroom, and they all knew every single song from the start of the show to the end of the show. And I sang for 45 minutes. And after 45 minutes, they didn't let me get off the stage. They had me do another song. So like when the crowd gives you that acceptance and that love, it's like that type of ovation is something that really motivates us as artists. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that I love that because like that when you're in front of the audience, that's when you're getting the validation after being, behind the computer screens and the production, everything. You seeing people face to face, you get those feelings again. And you were talking about you were in Argentina. I know you did you just got back from doing a couple of tour dates in Europe. And so one, you're kind of everywhere. And you also have a lot of collaborators. And how have you used, social media or like the internet in general to do all these collaborations as a global artist?
Well, it plays I think I would say the most important role as especially as an independent artist because I don't have a label that's pushing my music to the mainstreams. I don't have we don't have that type of backup. So as an independent artist, you really rely on your social media and your loyal following, and you kind of put this pressure on yourself to also deliver uh, uh, music that is captivating to also new audiences because the whole purpose is to continue to grow, and and develop more people listening to your music or your podcast. So I think social media is a very useful tool for all of that, although sometimes it can get ugly because everybody has an opinion and something to say. But at the end of the day, you really understand that even that type of negative interaction turns out to be positive because people took time out of the day to go leave that comment and go listen to your song and say what they got to say. Although, thank God, I haven't read any negative comments, in a good time.
Yeah, no, and maybe in the studio space, how does technology play a role? Like you do like bachata, you do reggaeton, you do different kinds of genres, and I think in music right now, a lot of producing is digital. Digital instruments, Pro Tools and production like that. What's your ratio of like using like real musicians like in the studio, like with the guitars and the drums and everything, versus like collaborating more online, more like electronic instruments and stuff like that?
Well, it's still very much a part of of the overall production because we always add like keyboards and and some drums. They're all like pads and stuff like that. But in specifically in the bachata genre, it is also very important to have that live musician feel. So most of the songs, um, I like to have my boys come through and do their thing because I'm also blessed to have connected with amazing musicians like this guy called Joelito. Joel Rodriguez. He has like boom. He's crazy on the bongos. He also plays the guira. We have this other musician, legendary musician. He's played with all the bachata greats. You name them, he's played with them. Enrique La Guira. Mayimbito, of course, which is like a top of the line, top notch producer, singer songwriter, Grammy, Grammy award winning, producer that just genuinely has a good vibe with me, and we always like collab together through good quality music. So I'm blessed to say that. Also, SP, he's my main producer, my go-to guy. Every time that we're about to uh, put any type of music together, recently, but mainly bachata, but any type of music, he's my go-to guy. We always seem to find the right vibes and the right way to translate this musical energy that we're trying to bring to the listener. And that translation doesn't work the same with just anybody. So that's also very important to have a team of people that are also well versed in the art of doing what you want to do, and that will naturally lead to better conversations and better music production. And it totally makes a difference when you hear a bachata that's fully digital and when you hear a bachata that's with live musicians. It's completely different.
I asked that question because like right now what I'm seeing is like, I don't know if you're on TikTok, but like, a lot of TikTok musicians, it's all like digital. And then we start seeing TikTok as the streaming platform where this kind of music and this process is popular and like more popular. Um, and as you've seen your career progress, how have you seen that popularity change? When did more electronic music become more popular, would you say, or like that process of it being more digital become the most popular? And right now, how do you see streaming playing a role into like how you make music?
Well, it's I make music based on the vibes that mean something to me. It's as a sentiment that I know people can connect with. So whether that's in digital format or whether that's with an acoustic guitar, it is completely up to the muse and the inspiration that day. Uh, that being said, of course, I think TikTok has given such a larger pool of options musically that it is really hard to pick out like the genuinely authentic, good musicians, right? Because, if like for example, a bachata song, like it takes a while to get it together, like in there are some people like for example, my Yimbito, he has a great advantage because he plays all the instruments. He plays bass, he plays the bongos, the guitars, and he tracks himself. So for someone like him, is a different process. He can really create more organic sounding music on a daily. But for other artists, that can be proved to be difficult. So I feel like TikTok, it has taken away from that a little bit, but it has also given a platform for more people to be involved, and that also translates to more people looking for new music, which I think in turn will also translate for us artists, new listeners that we can capture. So it all depends on how you look at it, perspective. If you want to use it as an excuse to say no because acoustic music should have higher ratings and all of that, yeah, but you have to dig into what's happening, give them a little taste of what they want, and then you bring them to what you really have to offer.
I think that's so interesting also because I'm also thinking the Grammys just happened, right? So you have TikTok and like Spotify where you can see like numbers and data and like these are popular artists, but then the Grammys might say something different, right? Because they're like the panel and their own little votes in the industry. Yeah, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. I think I saw a meme that was like the popular vote versus like the electoral college, which like would be the Grammys. Yeah, I don't know. Any thoughts on that?
Um, Grammys really look for like the whole process, and the whole musicality behind it. Of course, there's some people that say that it's very political. It's all about who you know, and I guess to a certain extent, everything in life is really about who you know. So I think it's more about the Grammys understanding that it's not just about the popularity contest. It's about who's out here moving the needle in terms of introducing maybe new ways to do an R&B, a new sounds, or a different way to express yourself in songwriting, other than, the typical, what's commercial and playing on the radio. So it has its pros and its cons. I understand why some people get upset, and I also understand why other people like really deserve it, because there's some musicians out here that are making great music, but they're independent musicians, so they don't stand a chance against all these billboard artists that have a whole label behind them, and or a whole investment team. It's not always about money, but the money plays a big role in the amount of exposure you have to the people. So I actually I kind of find it nice that they dig a little deeper, and it's not just about who's popular.
Yeah, I think I also have that. Like personally, I think sometimes I see pros and cons, like the Grammys, like you said, like they'll look into not just, because you have certain amount of numbers somewhere. They get into that process and it's like your peers, right? So it's other people in the music industry that would know that are doing that. But then, you think about like the Latin Grammys and like the Grammy category for like Latin artists in general. And um, it was nice seeing Bad Bunny up there, but then, all the subtitles were like non-English, right? Or people wouldn't take the Latin Grammys as seriously, as a person who's making Latin music in different genres, how do you see that space for Latin music, not just in the Grammys, but also like online and stuff?
Every day I see more and more of Latin culture being mixed in with your everyday American culture, because it is the reflection of the people, you know. So it is how this new generation, how this is how we have grown up talking. Que en un momento te hablamos en español, and then we go back to English because esa es la manera que nos entendemos, and that's just the way it is, right? And more of that culture translates into how they look for and listen to music. So, mentioning Bad Bunny at the American Grammys, opening up the American Grammy ceremony, I think it's an amazing bridge that is forming for that to happen, because when you submit to the Grammys, like certain percentage of your lyrics have to be in Spanish for it to be nominated for a Spanish Grammy, for a Latin Grammy. So I think that that's going to start breaking down those barriers, and making Latin music, more accessible to new listeners, because Latin music, we got the flavor, bro. Like I like, we can't we you can't hide the sky with one finger. Like this is the truth, you know.
Yeah, no,
So
I feel that. Yeah. Like I saw like Taylor Swift dancing to Bad Bunny. I was like, I never thought I would see that in my life, honestly. Like
it's inevitable. It's inevitable. You can't, because it's in your blood. It's in your nature. And Latin music has the power to tap into that, regardless of the language barrier. And I think that's beautiful.
yeah, no, I completely agree on that. And and talking about, discovering new things um and new artists, new music, how do you find new talent? You collaborate with very big names, but you've also been mentioning a lot of other people you collaborate with that, might be like peers, or like you might be a mentor now. How have you found this new talent, and how do you see yourself as a mentor when you do find this new talent?
It's kind of impactful to me, because I feel like I still have so much to learn. But I do see the opportunity to teach and to maybe give advice to new upcoming artists. Like for example, my friend Jensen, he's a very talented also bachata artist. He's Latino, also from the Dominican Republic, but raised in Boston area. So again, the culture, that this is what's happening, and seeing him grow within the bachata genre, and being a part of the steps that he's taking, uh really makes me feel like I'm giving back. Like I wish somebody would have done this with me, and been a little bit more sincere from the jump, because that really puts things into perspective, and you can really capitalize off of your time management, and you're able to focus your energy on the things that you've already seen are proven to work. So I feel great being able to do that, but I also look forward to learning, from, because you never know from where you can learn a new lesson.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer of like you never stop learning. You're right. My dad says like se pone, tú no estás viejo hasta que paras de aprender. Like siempre vas a estar joven si sigues aprendiendo. So I'm a firm believer in that as well. And yeah, like thinking about a Dominican artist who grew up in Boston, like if I listen to his music, it like I might relate to some of it, but then there's also that experience that's just being Dominican in Boston is like specific, and I get to learn from that, and that's all through music, and I find that very beautiful too. Um, and
Absolutely.
yeah, and like thinking about mentorship, like is there something you learned from being mentored by Daddy Yankee for a while and working with him for a bit, that you think has really stuck with you, has been important?
um Definitely consistency. Yeah, be consistent with the work. Be very disciplined. He was all about. He's always been all about discipline. Like if you have to get something done, like find a way to get it done. And I think that's always stuck with me. Also, uh, the way he always handles himself in front of the fans and people, like seeing that there is a balance. You can be humble and still get the respect, from people.
As I mentioned in the last episode with Jenny, today's guest, Pinto, is actually married to one of the guests from season 2. He's married to Ilse Cruz, who was the featured guest for episode 6. She is doing amazing work in the field of immigrant rights. She's an aspiring lawyer. She's absolutely amazing. I met her in the comments section of one of my YouTube videos, and then she introduced me to her husband, Pinto, because he's one of the most interesting people on her timeline. In this next clip, you're going to hear him really hype up Ilse and just talk about how it is working with her sometimes, where she's in his music videos or he posts her online, and that kind of like a work-life balance kind of thing. But overall, he's just really just hyping her up, and it's really cute. But anyways, shout out to you, Ilse. Thinking about like what you show online when you post, like when do you know, what I'm going to use this for work, I'm going to promote my song today, versus like, oh, here's a picture of like my wife, because this is still like, in my personal Instagram, and it's something I talk about Ilse too, like how do you present yourself online? What is your thought process, when you're posting, like when is it work, when is it personal?
Well, I'm very spontaneous when it comes to that. I think we have a pretty good filter of what should be online and what shouldn't. But I believe that anything that shows my love and appreciation for my wife, in a way that that's acceptable, and is always an okay, post to do. I am very conscious of also respecting how I project myself. I do have a 10-year-old son that now the conversations with him are a bit more sincere, and it's like, whoa, it's like he's growing up. So I have to also watch how I conduct myself for him, and also being professional over everything. Because in this world, anybody would pull just about any gimmick to go viral, you know, and sometimes they cross the line trying to do that. And I feel blessed that just doing good music and always maintaining like a clean profile has gotten me to where I am today. Uh, however long it takes, for however long it took, it got me here, and I think it's only getting better right now, and it's only going to continue to grow. When I found Ilse, I found a balance to myself that I had never experienced before, and there was a lot of growth involved in all of that. Uh, Not just professionally, but also as a man, and I am forever grateful for all of that, because she gave me a perspective on life, being a DACA recipient, and going through everything that she's gone through and fighting for what she fights for, gave me a completely new perspective on life in general. And the appreciation for the special moments grows like immensely when you realize something like that. So I think I feel as successful as anybody that has $10 million. That doesn't really matter right now. Like we're okay, and we have love, and we have health, and we have opportunities that continue to come our way. And as long as we do that and we stick together, we're gonna be just fine.
No, I love that, one, because like I love, but two, like y'all are like I said before, a power couple. Like, she's very like you said, she fights for what she believes, and she's this like badass lawyer, but she's also, like in your music video for Fronteo, like I love the balance y'all have, kind of like you said, that it's spontaneous, y'all will mix some of it, but you have, some boundaries, right? And some like filter. And I think y'all have done it really well. And, as an audience member, I'm like, not only am I getting, the music updates, like when a new song comes out, new video comes out, a performance, but I get to see like a side of you, and that's also why I did this podcast, where I was like, oh, like he also seems like a cool person, and on top of that is doing this really cool work professionally. So I kind of
Thank
like
you.
that becomes a a nice balance of being genuine and being professional, that I appreciate about online, like artists online. Maybe this is like a separate, not even a question, but I just wanted to let you know, like I pride on it being like a genuine interaction. So I wanted to share with you a few of my favorite songs that I was listening to from you. One, I love Buddies, which I think is like your most like famous song right now. But I heard it and I was
Yeah.
like, this is so good. This is so good. And I saw people like posting it and in Paris, dancing in Paris. And I was just like, when I go to Paris, I'm gonna play this song and it's gonna be like really cool. And then, but then I think that was like the first song I heard. And then I listened to Panico, completely different vibe, change. And I was like, but wait, I was still getting hyped to it. And so like I was like, you could do bachata, you can do reggaeton, and you don't really choose. Like maybe like a question that comes out of that is, how do you balance those both vibes out that are very different?
Well, one always reflects on the other, either way you play. Because if I'm doing reggaeton, I know that it's more of a rugged club feel. So I try to hide behind the lead vocals, a couple of things here and there, oohs and ahs that you would only hear in like an R&B song, and give it a different touch. And then when I do bachata, I always try to keep that, that syncopation, to look for the spaces in between the beats, just to like play with the rhythm, kind of like a drum, so I think one of the things about my music that connects most with my audience is the fact that they can have both in one song, at least elements of both in one song. And right now my focus is on bachata, because this is the community that has completely embraced every single song that I've taken out. Dances, like you said, like professors teach their students to my music. So I think that's also something that plays a big role into having a fan base that's loyal even on the long run, because they didn't just run into you on TikTok. Like, they went to learn something, they went to learn how to dance, and they learned to your music. So like they have to like, let that sink in. And I think that kind of that has a different level of connection with the people that listen to my music, because they can have that.
Yeah, like you said, it's the best of both worlds. And like even as you were talking, saying you were focusing on bachata right now, I can still hear that reggaeton element or that R&B element in some of those songs still. And you haven't, it's not like you let that go. And I think it's like a really, really nice sound. Like it's classic, but a little more, like a little something different,
Yeah, yeah, kind of like you can also check out Fronteo, which is my new single, and that is an even more, that's an even bolder expression of like urban on top of bachata, because it's a bachata beat, but I'm really kind of like rap singing on it.
Yeah, like
And
you said,
yeah,
like te vaste con el flow, like
y ni lo viste. What?
yeah, so like I just think your music is very dynamic, and appreciate it. Like I'm someone who I'm also a singer and I've been in groups before, and like I'm not very much a performer though, but I do love music. Like I said, it was my first love. So like I love talking to artists like you who have those, they're not just, one genre, they add those layers, they had those elements too. And I learned from that, in my own practice.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's always a beautiful thing to connect with fellow musicians. So I feel you.
Yeah. And I feel like I don't just do music, I do film and stuff. And so, music is really important when you're filmmaking or when you're doing video. And also in music now,
Mhm.
when you make a music video, that's also like an important aspect of it. And you just released the music video for Fronteo. Yeah, what is that dynamic when you're making music? Do you already see what the music video will be like? Or like, how do you meld the two, the visual and the audio?
Sometimes while I'm writing the song, I kind of have a vision of what it could look like, and that kind of plays into like the whole mood of how we create the song too. Sometimes, other times it's always like a very genuine. Like I woke up and had like a random thought, or I ran into like a phrase while I was reading something. I was like, ooh, like I could use this. Well, I guess it has to kind of match the mood. So in the case of Fronteo, we're talking about, I just got a new car, I'm smelling good, I just got paid, I'm about to hit the mall. So the first thing that comes to mind is like very fashion, like looking good, like looking fresh. So we wanted to make it more of like instead of trying to make like a script for a music video, we wanted to catch a vibe, our natural vibe together, and just make it like a video photo shoot type of thing. So yeah, it plays off like that. It depends on the sounds, I guess.
Right. And then you were also in Evie Queen's music video for Bye Bye. How was that process, being in somebody else's music video versus being in your own?
That was actually very spontaneous. They said, "Hey, we got a studio session today. We'd like for you to come through. Well, we need to finish producing this record. Dress nice." That's it. That's all they said. So I was like, okay, cool. And turns out that they're like, no, while we're working, we really are gonna work on the song. But while we're working on it, they're gonna be recording the whole process, and we're gonna like put a whole music video together with it. So I thought that was pretty cool. Very spontaneous. Working with Evie Queen is also a great blessing that I've had due to all the connections that I've been able to make working in different studios and with different high name producers. And she has just like complete confidence in my work, and I think that's one of the things I enjoy most about working with her. Because some artists are very difficult. They don't want to relinquish control, artistic control. Because that's something that's very very near and dear to our hearts, and I get it. But when an artist of her caliber is also open to like, hey, no, like this is the idea of what I want, but you can get there whichever way you like, then that working process is a lot smoother, because there's no really no pressure that it has to sound a specific way. It just has to be a hit. That's all she wants. I just want a hit. You make me a hit and we're good. And she's very humble and also very exigente con sus cosas, como debe de ser. Y trabajar con ella ha sido una muy buena experiencia.
Of course, the series is called The Most Interesting People on My Timeline, but for this segment, I turn it over to my featured guest to put me onto something new and tell me about the most interesting people on their timelines.
There's this one guy that they keep sending to the group chat. But he curses a whole lot, but I think it's just funny like how he tries to like motivate you to go to the freaking gym. I don't know if you seen this guy. He's like, go to the freaking gym, go to the freaking gym. So he's somebody that's interesting because regardless of how I feel about his videos, when they send them to me, it's like, damn, I really do need to work out today. I gotta get it done. So I think that's very motivational. I would say, of course, my first choice that comes to mind is my wife. But you already jumped the gun. You already got her, so you made it difficult for me. That was like go to. That was the best one. SP is my producer. He's a very interesting person because not only does he produce great music, he also works at uh, uh, Warner Music as an A&R. He was the director of A&R, and now he works directly with the marketing of the artist. So he's able to have different views on the same subject, as an artist himself and as an executive of the music industry. I think he's a very interesting person that you could talk to get a better insight of the music industry.
And he's the one that produced Fronteo, right?
Yes, he did. We actually we have a collab video that's on my Instagram at Pinto Picasso. Just go check it out. And it's like how Fronteo came about. He breaks it down, what sounds he used, how he found them, and it's pretty cool. You guys should check it out.
What's coming up in the future that you can share? And two, where can we find this work? Where's all your work live online?
Oh man, I think I'm very excited. I think no, I know I'm super excited about my album, my new album that's coming up. It's gonna be called it's called Casa Gemas. To give you a little background on that, my first bachata EP, Blue, Bleu, the way they write it in French, inspired off of Pablo Picasso's Blue Era. He got into this blue era because he moved from Spain to Paris with his best friend Casagemas. That was his last name. And they moved there, to pursue their artistic career and all of that. And his best friend was actually a manic depressive and ended up, taking his own life over some woman. So says the story. And this drove Pablo Picasso into like a very sad, gloomy state, which he chose to express through his painting, thus, entering the blue era of Pablo Picasso, where he made the Blue Room, the guitar player, which are like more of his iconic pieces. And it just goes to show that adversity sometimes is the push that you need to get to the level that you want to get to. And the same way he left Spain to go to Paris, I had just left uh, the label that I was under to become an independent artist. So I found it very poetic in a way how the stories were kind of similar. Pablo Picasso also helped other painters put their art displays together. Same way I help other artists get their songs together for their musical display. So I just found that it was like a very interesting, similarities, and it inspired a whole EP. And now this next album is going to be called Casa Gemas, in honor of that inspiration that came from uh, the first EP, and it also means House of Gems. And I feel like every song on the album is going to be a gem, very different. Every song has its own essence, and yet it all falls under like a very cohesive sense. If that makes sense.
Yeah. So where you mentioned your Instagram at Pinto Picasso, where else would you like to be found in the digital
Oh,
world?
please follow me on Spotify, Pinto Picasso. You can find me as Pinto Picasso pretty much under all digital platforms. YouTube, specifically, I'm going to be uploading a lot of good stuff there real soon. Instagram is where I'm most active. I'm there on a daily basis. TikTok, it's Pinto Picasso. Also, I'm not very active on the TikTok. Uh, but yeah, follow me on all those platforms because we on there, baby. We on there. We getting all that music played.
All of Pinto's work is linked in the description box of whatever platform you're listening on, as well as on taniadoes.com/Pinto Picasso, where you can also find bonus clips. But make sure to follow him on all social media, follow him on Spotify, stream his music because honestly, I love it. It's so good. Paris and Lucky are probably going to be the most streamed songs of the year for me. I've had them on repeat ever since I met Pinto, and they're just amazing. So go stream that. And follow him on social media so you know where he's going to perform next because he just got off a European tour and I'm sure he's going to be performing all over the US, all over Latin America pretty soon. So stay tuned for that and also follow him to know when he drops his new album, Casa Gemas. Also, make sure to follow me, your host, at Tanya Does on TikTok and Instagram, and make sure to follow the Spotify page for this podcast as well as subscribe on YouTube so you can keep up with this series. Speaking of Casa Gemas or House of Gems, next week's guest knows a thing or two about dropping gems. They are an undocu artist centering healing and community within their work, and they've collabed with not one, but two of our previous guests. So stay connected, stay creating beautiful things, and I will see y'all in the next episode.